Today I have a conversation with Amirreza, who is a senior software engineer at one of the best-known startups in the UK. He shares his story of how he transitioned from being a front-end developer into a senior software engineer. He also shares some very useful tips about how to best showcase your skills and expertise in your CV and cover letter if you're planning to enter into the tech industry or if you're already in it and you want to excel in your career. Don't miss this conversation, and please don't forget to subscribe. So I've been really curious to learn more about the career path that you've had so far, which is a very impressive one. You started as a front-end developer, and now you're a senior software engineer. So would you mind telling us a little bit about what drew you to become a front-end developer in the first place? How did you get started?
Yeah, very good question. Well, basically, I had a background in computer science. I was a bachelor student doing computer science back in the time, and then I found a boot camp at that time around software development specific to front-end engineering, and that was the route and randomness around that I got interested into that area because that was the only option around. And then I got interested because it was always a question for me that how a graphical part of a website or graphical part of a software has been developed, because it sounds like you cannot code something graphical. And then I was interested to see how this is possible.
What was it like at the beginning? I mean, when you had just started to become a front-end developer, I'm sure there's been lots of challenges at the beginning. There are lots of ups and downs and uncertainties, but would you mind telling us about what was it like?
Sure. Yeah, basically this starts with the fundamental question of how to build things. And it always is the main question, how to. And then when you want to figure it out, it brings you to the area of, well, what do you want to do? And then if what you want to build is like a website, it has its own way of, you need to learn these and that. And then it enables you to just be able to build something around it. And then when it comes to another version of it, which is like, oh, now I have an idea how these elements has been rendered in a browser, the next step will be like, okay, how to just make it more interactive, how to make it easier to just develop for the next version of this, because it's not always as simple as what you just start with. And then all of them will just help you to find your own path around front-end development and software engineering in general.
What would drive you to keep asking questions?
I think it starts with curiosity around something, or it sometimes could be the problem that you're facing while you are investigating or showing some interest into developing something. Like technically, as like an example, when you want to build a game and you start with, okay, how can I make some, I don't know, let's say I want to make a Tetris game and I want to build different blocks that could just land on the surface, and then I have an idea how to build those bits, but then I don't know how to have two players at the same time, for example, if I want to just extend the option of the game, like adding more features to a software. And then it brings you to the question of, I have an idea, but I don't know how to build it. So it drives you to the next level of, let me read more about it because it's interesting to do. So it always, for me, starts with, I want to do something, I don't know how, so I go and read about it.
You started as a front-end developer. What made you to transition into becoming a software engineer?
Yeah, that's a good one. Because basically I had, it was always blurry in my head when I was thinking about whether I'm a software developer, I'm a software engineer, I'm a front-end engineer. What do I do? At the time I was even working on a compiler, which is like quite far away from the stack. I just did a course on compilers back in my bachelor days. But then you realize as a software engineer, if I want to use the term as general as possible, I will call someone a software engineer if they are interested into solving any problem. First of all, defining what the problem is, and then trying to solve the problem.
When you started your career at the very beginning, was there anything that you did that now that you look back, you think that, well, I could have done this differently, or I wish I hadn't done this, or I wish I had tried something else, something that the newcomers could try and avoid some of the hard
Very good
stuff?
question. But just with mentioning the fact that whatever you've done back in the time is teaching you your future lessons. So it's not that if I go back, I change something, I get to the exact same position. But if I wanted to go back and change something, that would have been definitely the fact that if I learn something, I will not let it go easily. I try to document something around it. Something that I do right now. I think it has actually a technical name as well. Knowledge mind graph, something like that. Like technically you got your knowledge connected together and you try to write it down in somewhere. It could be like your Obsidian application that you have everything there, or it could be your Notion app, or even it could be as easy as a Google Doc or a Word file, whatever. But you have to put it somewhere in a categorized way, I think, that you can next time go back and easily find it. You get it wrong for the first few times, but then next time you learn how to do it better, and then it evolves eventually.
So you mean whatever new things we learn, record it somewhere so that we'd be able to come back later and to kind of refresh our memory, and also to be able to see what we've learned so far? Is that the purpose of it?
Not exactly everything. The ones that worth recording, the ones that worth having somewhere. Have I realized that it's worth having it when I get to the same problem more than once, or more than twice, or even if it takes me an hour to figure out how to solve it, or when sometimes it surprises me with the way I've solved it. I have my FAQ, frequently asked questions, for Git. Like every time I use Git, for the ones who are necessarily not familiar with it, is a way of version controlling your code. So anytime I want to write something around, I want to bring my latest commit back, I forget the command. So what I've done, I have a note section under my personal blog that I record these problems, and it easily reminds me of what I need to do. So I have my FAQ for some Git commands that it could have been for, I don't know, like Python programming language. If you have some problems with something and you cannot remember, it's worth recording it. Don't be worried about if I'm recording too many things. You can easily remove them when you find they're irrelevant. So yeah, how I started with, I was recording a lot and I realized, oh, that's too much. And I started to just prune them and get rid of most of it. And you get to the stable state of, this is my knowledge that I want to store somewhere.
And that might even turn to something more in the future. I mean, just on top of my head, someone can get inspired by it. Or maybe you think that, oh, I can turn this to something that someone else might benefit from. For example,
we're getting to the open source conversation. That's why I put it on the internet, because if someone else finds it beneficial, they could just feel free to use it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love it.
But it's mine, so it's not applicable to everyone. That's why I say this is a bit personalized. So I'm not saying go and use others, but just make your own, because it helps you learn. You can publish it publicly. There's nothing secret. There should be nothing secret about it. You should not publish your private keys on the internet, and that should not be part of your knowledge, because your private key is just some private information somewhere. But how to generate a new private key, that's actually something that every time that I change my laptop, I need to do that again to make my own PAT, like personal access token on Git. And I recently have done it enough that I started documenting it somewhere. That next time I don't need to go and read the full documentation. I just have an idea where to begin with, what to do, what should I expect. And that saves me time a lot. And I wish I've done it a lot back in the time.
Yeah, that could help a lot of people trying to start their career and trying to learn stuff. What are other things, like what other aside from the technical skills that someone should acquire, like different programming languages, lots of technical things, but what about the non-technical skills that someone must develop to become a good, proficient software engineer or someone in the same field?
I think becoming a software engineer is not to working in isolation. Sitting down, having your hoodie on, especially your hat on, and then trying to do the programming like a hacker or someone that you see in the movies. If you're becoming someone like that, just don't do it. I think you're doing the wrong thing. You need to work in collaboration with the others. You must, because it's where you learn your soft skills. And soft skills is not something that you can go and read. Well, definitely you can read about it, but you also need to exercise it. You need to experience it in real world problems. If I want to ask you the good question, back to our topic, you should have the softer skill to communicate with people, with your teammates, with your colleagues. And you can just acquire this knowledge by just practicing it. And there are several ways to do this. And if you're working in isolation, you have no one around you and you just want to break into tech, just to start contributing to an open source project. It forces you to collaborate with the maintainers of the repository, because the moment you make a new pull request, meaning if you want to add more changes to the project, you have to get an approval from some maintainer or someone who is the code owner of that repository. And the communication begins in that moment. So just be open to communication. Put yourself out there and talk to people, work with people. This was an example. If you're working in a company, you definitely have day-to-day conversations with your colleagues. If you don't have one of them, you should figure out why this is happening.
Yeah. That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's not going well and then trying to make it better. Was this influential in your transition from a front-end developer into a senior software engineer? This behavioral, non-technical skill development, was it crucial, do you think?
I believe so. There was a time when I asked my line manager that I want to get into the software engineering area, not just being a front-end developer. Not to say being a front-end developer is a bad thing or not enough thing, but I was sort of curious to experience the other side of the problems as well. He asked me, what do I think a software engineer do? And the reply was, I think they just solve any problem. And he replied, actually, that's correct. I think the same way. Well, with adding more on that. But basically, I think the general responsibility of a software engineer is to just not being afraid of a problem, just going there, trying to solve it, and learn what it takes to solve the problem. Sometimes it takes you to ask a good question from someone, or even find the right person to ask your question. But all of them could be possible with you going and talking to people. And that is a softer skill, as well as asking good questions, as well as actually grasping enough domain knowledge within a company. Because then it all helps together to get you to the place that you need to be when you are facing a challenge. Sometimes the answer is like, go and ask Dave. He has an idea on how to solve this problem, rather than you sitting down for 3 hours searching around this problem. That could be just a legacy code that they know.
Yeah. So to be a good software engineer, you'd say that one must be able to communicate really well, and to be able to find problems and to maybe not just identify the problem, but to be able to form a good question around it,
Yeah.
and then to be able to find the right answer to it. So is it fair to say that it requires a level of leadership, curiosity, good communication skills, like a combination of all these?
Yeah, very good takeaway. Because I think you might guess, if I'm a software engineer, why we're not talking about technical skills? We keep talking about questions, we're talking about communications and stuff, but I need to get things done as well. But, well, that is a requirement, right? We're not talking about like the obvious, because you have to code, you have to be hands-on. But don't worry about it. That's gonna be the easy part when you start doing this. So after some degree, like after some years of experience, to a degree you understand the basics and like the fundamentals of any technology that you're working with. And then you sort of get your hands on general knowledge around that field, that you feel comfortable that I can use this, and then you can build your career afterwards on that. So not to say technical skills is not important, but we're talking about the other things that might not be as obvious as technical skills.
What about for people that are on the verge of starting their career in tech? How can someone build a good portfolio, a good CV for themselves? Is there a good starting point?
I think I can say what they should avoid, and then they can find, so what is the nice way of doing this? Because the answer is so hard. But if you know what to avoid, it helps you to just not get into the loop of not getting anywhere, maybe. They should avoid building a new hotel reservation or to-do app or weather app. But instead, they should think what they're interested and how they can turn their interest into some technical projects that is sort of different from the typical ones. That could just grab attention of an interviewer or a company, someone who is like, when they see the project, they can see you've done something even a bit different. If you go and build a new to-do app from a course on Udemy or Coursera or whatever online learning platform is out there, you are becoming another software engineer or another software developer, which is fine, but it's harder to get a job. The second part that you need to avoid is basically trying to overcomplicate projects. You do not need to try every single technology that you've learned, because it itself on its own is another skill that you can pick and use the technologies that are relevant to the project. So it shows you have an idea about the flow from the beginning till the deployment of the product on the web. It also includes the software strategy, like when you are working on something, recommended to do that as a team. But if it's you just on your own, just do the planning, have an idea of what features you want to implement first, what is required, and then you get to the MVP, and then you want to add on top more features. So it shows the fact that you have an idea about the process of software engineer and different methodologies that are out there, as well as how to build a technical thing. And the other part is going to be, well, all of them are brilliant, but what if I can work on a real world project, which again, I'm a big open source enthusiast, fan, advocate, and what I want to just share and I want to encourage everyone is to just go out there, look at open source projects, try to contribute, even though if you're just fixing a very tiny issue within the project, the fact that you have to clone the repository, you have to set it up, teaches you a lot. And that's a real world project because people are using it. There are different, there are different ways to get your hands dirty on it. For example, we just passed October, and there's a Hacktoberfest, which is a world-known contest, not necessarily contest, but more of a collective people trying to contribute to the open source, and everyone is doing that at the same time. So it's like a community around it, and you can start contributing on a project, and it helps you a lot.
Or hackathons.
It sounds like a hackathon, but it's not. It's less of a competition, but more of a let's do it together. Because what you do is like you find a project, you make a new pull request or merge request, and then when you get your code on that open source project, you get a thumbs up, and then when you get 6 of that, it means you've done a very good job. Back in the time, they gave away some T-shirts, but now they don't do this. I think they do it for like the couple of 10,000 first people who have done it. But anyway, this is interesting. You get your online badge, you get within a community. This is backed by DigitalOcean, but anyway, there are different ways of contributing to the open source. This was one example that is world known, that people are interested and they do this.
Yeah, so get your hands in something.
Yep.
Start doing things. That's a good way to build a portfolio. What about when it comes to writing the CV and the cover letter? So that plays a really important role for someone who wants to present themselves well. And people are using AI tools all the time. But aside from the AI tool, because I know that you've been on the hiring side of the table and you have interviewed people, you've gone through so many CVs and cover letters. So I would like to ask, has there been any instances that you were reading a file and you were like, oh, I really need to talk to this person? Something that stood out? Aside from the technical expertise, because people have them, acquire them, learn things. But when it comes to delivering their message or writing their story, has there been something that has stood out to you?
It's easy to say, what is the distraction? If you put a lot of different skills and technologies within your CV, you cannot do, well, you might be able to within 10 years, but you cannot do 5 different programming languages within a year and when you're starting your career. So it's really important to just mark the primary bits that you were concerned during your experience. You should not just try to fill in the blanks and put a lot of things in your CV. Just put the ones that matters. But something that is like making the CV different from the others, to me, is when they focus on what they've done rather than what they know. And I'm not going to give you another how to write a CV lecture, but I'm just trying to say, when you're getting to your bullet point writing, what is really interesting for me to see is to get what you've done within that role that you were working. Whether it was a technical role or it could have been something different. But what is the outcome of that action? I think there are different techniques to write it down. But as a human being, when I'm reading this, I'm like, this guy knows something that I want to talk to. And I want to ask them what they've done. So if you don't make a question in the hiring manager's mind, chances are that it gets skipped as another CV in their list.
What about using the tools? So I remember you mentioning that we shouldn't write whatever we've written on our CV into our cover letter. The cover letter is mainly to show why we're fit for the role and why we want to be considered for that. So if someone has written, and yes, they should write it themselves. But do you recommend using AI tools to refine it, to maybe make it, to proofread it or something like that?
Yeah, actually, I do think it's harmless using AI to just modify or proofread what you've written already. Just be so aware of why you're using these AI tools. Because it's so easy to just use them to just generate you something
Yeah.
instead of you writing it down. And that's like the downside of using it. You should have an idea. You should have written down all your bullet points, or you got your paragraphs structured in your head. And then you ask AI to just, even sometimes just make it smaller, because you can just elaborate a lot. And then that's something that I do sometimes. Like 5 sentences could be just
Squeezed into one.
squeezed into one.
Yeah.
They're
I
saying
do
the same
that
thing. Sometimes
all the
one
time.
or something. Exactly. So it's the best use of AI, but not to ask it to write it for you and give you an idea, because it's just dumb in that sense. But it's brilliant in the sense of just proofread what I've written, or just make it more concise, or I don't know, better for a human being or a native speaker, because I'm not one of them. So if you're a native speaker, it's easier for you to write a CV. But if you're speaking another language, it's just sort of easy for you to make mistakes. To be fair, sometimes if you make some grammatical mistakes or pronunciations, I think it proves the fact that it's not written by AI. I think people are using this as a technique these days.
Yeah.
They ask AI to just make mistakes. I don't know. You can go a long way with all of these techniques. But
That's actually a good idea. I hadn't heard of it.
humanized version of AI, but I don't know. It's not too hard to write like 3 paragraphs in my head.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. You should just be honest with yourself and try to write it down. Not to say you have to literally write everything for yourself from one job application to the other one. It's okay to have a structure. You have an idea what you want to write down, and then you have a template, for example, and you just use the same template to apply for different jobs. But the template should be written by you. You should own what's been in a cover letter, because you want to show interest.
Yeah.
It should be like a genuine interest raised by you, not by AI.
So when you say structure, do you mean, for example, to start by talking about X and then moving on to Y, and then you can fill this out based on your interest in the role?
Yeah, by structure I mean whenever you want to apply for one job and then you write a cover letter, when you go and try another job, it does not mean that you have to rewrite the whole thing again necessarily. If you want to, feel free to do that. But because both of them are in different positions and you've written once, you can just use most of it for the second one, as long as you keep the structure, but you change the important bits. So your interest changed from one job to the other. The related part of your experience is changed from one job to the other. Or sometimes the reason you're applying for this job changed from one to the other. So you know the differences, but you use the same structure, if it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So this is something that I personally do. When I wanted to, like 4 years ago, when I was applying for a job, I had a template cover letter and I was just filling the blanks, and there were no ChatGPT back in the time. And I don't believe using the same structure and tailoring it from one job to the other is a bad practice. It's fairly okay in my head, but people might come with different suggestions. It's a very open world with all of different suggestions on this field, and there's no correct answer. There are different best practices, but just not a single
Best way.
right way, or you can just adopt your way with others.
Yeah, makes sense. Going back to the soft skills that you mentioned before, I'm sure there are lots of problems coming in the way. There are some frustrating moments. It could be either when someone is trying to learn something or trying to solve something. But can I ask how you deal with these frustrating moments in your career?
Yeah, you experience them a lot, especially when you just started something. Well, other than just going out and just yelling at the first stranger that you see, you can basically see this as it's one-off situation. It's something that you just feel occasionally. It's not the end of the world, and it's very, very natural for you to feel down. And then the moment you realize it's not just you, it helps. There are other people out there that are feeling the same sometimes. It's not even the end of the world if you cry at work. Like, all of this could happen. Frustration is part of your job. And then the way you manage it, you learn when you face it, and then you can use the same learnings from time to time. For me, it helps when I know it's not just me.
Yeah, that's a comforting feeling. I remember when the COVID hit, we're like, oh, we're not alone. Everybody's going through the same thing.
Feeling of having a community always helps.
Yeah. You mentioning community reminds me of you being a mentor, and I know that you mentor people, especially the ones that are trying to break into tech. So I would like to ask, are there any steps someone can take if they want to break into tech, having no idea where to start and being just at the very beginning, no technical skills whatsoever? Can you think of some steps that someone can take in order to become a developer or a software engineer?
Yeah, very good one. They should just not be afraid of a start. They just need to start something. They need to begin with doing something. And then the moment you start, you realize what problems are ahead of you. And then you feel, sometimes even you need to start something to feel the confident that I can do this.
But what could that something be? What could that be starting point be?
We're talking about, I guess, someone who has an idea of a computer, who's a computer scientist maybe, or someone who wants to break into computer science area, but they're not expert and they're looking for help. So I want to answer this sort of personality question. So what I think they need to do is they need to just open ChatGPT or any other AI tools and say, this is who I am. What can I do first? They need to know what they are interested in order to pick the right tool to begin with. It's not the end of the world if they change it. The programming language that you start, sometimes it's Python or JavaScript these days. Back in the time, it used to be C++. I think because they wanted to start fundamental.
Yeah.
But we are less patient these days. So we are too lazy to learn things from scratch. It's not a problem necessarily, because you want to start something doesn't mean that you learn everything around it. So you start with an AI tool, gives you enough context that you know what you're interested in, where you can begin. Based on your conversation, you know where to start, and then you know there's an internet out there that you can Google different stuff, including what is a roadmap to front-end engineering, what is a roadmap to data science, and what is a roadmap to blah, blah. And I believe the well-known website called roadmap.sh might just get into your way, and then you can learn, oh, these are the steps that I can take.
Right.
Or you can just join a boot camp, or you can just find someone who is a mentor in that field. There are millions of ways of doing this. What I suggest is to just start. I don't really mind any of them. Because if you do one of them, the next one is very much similar to the other one. You learn subject A, B the first year, C, D the second year, or it could be vice versa. So just do something. You'll get to somewhere that leads you to the next state. And this is how things work and how things start.
Yeah. Pretty much for everything, doesn't it?
Think so.
Stop overthinking, stop too much planning, but just do it.
Yeah, so I don't think you can just stop overthinking.
Yeah.
You need to do something, and then overthinking will stop, because you've done something and it gives you some level of confidence. And then things will disappear and you have an idea and you have better problems to solve, rather than, where should I start?
Because you've done it. You've transitioned between roles. Is there anything that might help people who want to start their career, or they're on the verge of transitioning to a new role within the field?
Yeah, I think for me, the most interesting part was to don't be afraid of taking more responsibilities, because that's where you grow. Literally, even as a junior, how you grow is highly dependent upon your responsibilities, your day-to-day. And that is a literally free resource for you, waiting for you to just step up and be a better software engineer. It might sound like you're serving your company better. I don't think there's any problem with that. You can just ask for more money at some point, and you get better job title, you got your career progression, but also it benefits you with the feeling of I'm useful. Being useful is coming out of you stepping up when there's a problem, not to hide away from it. And all of my learnings has been literally the moments I realized there's a gap and I wanted to just step up and fill the gap. It also adds on frustration because the situation itself is not easy. It's really frustrating. But you can use this moment to just grow.
That uncertainty, that ambiguity could be frustrating, but also serve as an enabler.
Exactly. That really pays off as well. Because it's not that you just learn the technical bit, you also learn the softer skill. But basically you gain experience out of that, right?
Yeah.
But that situation is for free. It's like a problematic situation, it's like a challenge, but you can survive and you learn, you gain a lot.
And also it builds on resilience, doesn't it? Like to be able to withstand that period of frustration and ambiguity and uncertainty and not knowing where to go and how to solve that thing, that also builds the resilience and maybe to a sense autonomy of the person. So that might as well feed into becoming a better version.
I might be too generalist on this, but I feel like the software engineering philosophy could help you in life as well. In the aspect they were just mentioning. Like, yeah, the more resilient you become in your day-to-day job, well, you cannot just forget about it when you get to the problem in your daily life. So it's literally there, whether you like it or not. So you are a more resilient person at the end of the day. So as I said, I might be too generalist on this, but it makes you a better person.
I like the idea that once you grow, you can't undo it, can you?
It's just there.
Yeah, it's just there. Yeah, no, that's a good mindset. Have you had similar mindset shifts when you look back? Like the person that you were years ago when you just started, would you say that your mindset has shifted along the way?
One major takeaway for me was when I thought I'm gonna find the time and do something, and there's no better time rather than the time that you want to do this. In my work, my day-to-day work, when I want to fix a bug that is haunting me literally every day, if there's a problem in my setup, and every day when I start working, I need to spend 10 minutes to just deal with that problem. There's no better way solving this when it's there every day. It literally helped me in life when I was thinking, well, I'll find the time to play some instruments. You need to be honest, whether you like to play something and you do that, or it never. It could be a schedule for another month or something as well, but yeah, who knows? So it's whether I want to do this or no. Same in my job. Whether I want to fix this problem or it's there. So there's no lying around it that I'm going to do this when it's sunny or when, I don't know, who knows.
Monday morning.
Next Monday morning or any other time. If there's a problem, better fixing it. Not to say forget about prioritization and stuff. It is a priority if it's a day-to-day problem. So you need to do something about it. Sometimes the answer is, I'm not going to fix it. That's fair. I spend every day 10 minutes. But that's like the level of honesty that you become, that you get with yourself.
Are there any things that you would do on a daily basis that you'd say that it helps in your career? For example, that prioritization or that putting 10 minutes that you mentioned. Are there any methods that you apply personally?
I just try to write things down and get to them later. Because if it's not written in my notebook or in my notes, it's nowhere.
Putting it down.
Putting it down doesn't matter if it's like a pen and paper or it's in your notes or any other sources. And it also gets out of your head, and you can later on go and prioritize how big of a deal that was.
That might also help with the frustration.
Yeah.
And the uncertainty. When you bring it down, then you free up some space.
Yeah, I agree.
To deal with that. That's a good
Not
thing.
that I'm a psychologist, but I think that might help.
Well, there's no better way than learning from somebody who's done it. I think it doesn't take to be a psychologist. It's just that I tried this. It worked. It might work for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amirreza. It was really a pleasure having this conversation with you and learning more about your career. So it was really interesting. Thank you so much for...
Yeah, the pleasure is mine, and I really enjoyed talking to you, and that was so fun.
Thank you.